it near, it's on! Scotland have done it!
Hello and welcome to the official Scotland podcast. We do have a very special guest for you today because some people would settle for one cap for their national team, but Jen Beattie went on to get 144. It is quite a total. In fact, your 100th cap is behind us in the cabinet. How does it feel to be back here at Hampden?
It's really cool. I've actually never been into this museum, so it's a first for everything. And yeah, it's special seeing the 100 cap there in among some cool pennants. So yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
We do a backwards look at this and start at retirement because it wasn't that long ago, but now the dust probably has settled. So how do you look back on the decision to retire and why it was the right time?
I think timing was probably the biggest thing for me. I think I'd had so many conversations when, I'm best mates with Kim Little. She's still a teammate at Arsenal, and we kind of always said that if I was in a lucky enough position to retire from Scotland before club, that was kind of always the plan. To be able to do other things, to kind of try and get other experiences going into retirement for when I eventually did stop. But yeah, so it was on my mind for a good few years, and for me it felt like the right time. I'd started to look at other things that I wanted to do outside of football and gone through a few things personally off the pitch, and I was just ready to try other things. And it was always going to be a really difficult decision. I don't think anyone ever wants to retire from pulling on a blue jersey or playing for Scotland or coming to Hampden and play. So it was a mixture of emotions, a lot of conflict, feelings, but it definitely was the right time for me.
How do you look back then on your Scotland career? Because I'd imagine us mere mortals who never do it, when you're in the thick of it, you maybe don't get the time to really reflect.
Yeah.
But now that you take the decision to retire, a bit of space, how do you reflect on everything that you achieved?
I just honestly look back with so many fond memories. Like, I feel so lucky to have got to major tournaments. I always say one of the best things about playing for Scotland, and because I moved away when I was 18 from home. I was born and bred in Glasgow and moved away from aged 18, went out and played in France and in Australia, obviously in England for so many years. And the best thing about playing for Scotland was, aside from the playing aspect, was meeting up with Scottish people every 6 weeks and just having that camaraderie and the same sort of banter that we all have. And as Scottish people, that's what I missed, especially as a kid living out in Montpellier or not speaking the language very well whatsoever. To come back and to be around Scottish people was so much fun, and that still to this day is probably what I miss the most is the people, and that goes across staff and players as well. But yes, so many unreal memories. I wouldn't even really know where to begin, but playing for major tournaments, having family in the stand, eventually getting the games played at Hampden, that was probably a peak for me.
Okay, let's try and scratch the surface on some of the memories. The debut seems like an obvious place to start. 2008 against the USA. What can you remember?
It feels so long ago.
It sounds long ago. What do you remember about it?
I remember those are the Cyprus Cup days. Yep. So I remember being a kid. I remember my mum and dad being I was about to do hires, I think, and they were quite nervous that I was missing sort of classroom education and all that stuff, because that's one of the most important parts of your life, like as a kid. So I remember, taking all your textbooks away, but I was playing for the national team. I remember all of a sudden Julie Fleeting went from being a hero to a teammate, and that sort of concept change was mind-blowing to me. I was in awe of what she did on the pitch, and as a teammate she was amazing as well. So it was kind of went from having them as heroes to the superstars, and then I was all of a sudden playing with them. So it was unreal. And my debut, I'll never forget it. I came off the bench as a kid, and my mum almost missed it. She'd come all the way, bless her, on her own, come all the way to Cyprus and gone to the wrong stadium, because it was a tournament, so there was loads of stadiums, different teams playing at different teams, and she'd gone to the wrong one. And to be honest, probably in those days, there wasn't that much coverage, so she put in, I don't know, did the internet exist?
You can't even get Google Maps, is that what you're telling us? That's how long ago
or
your
my mum maybe just didn't
was.
know how to look for the proper details, and bless her, I can't even imagine, but she didn't tell me this after. And then all of a sudden I see her in the stadium, all right, okay, mum's here. And yeah, it was just amazing. I don't really remember much about the game, but again, against USA, it was against superstars that I just looked up to, and all of a sudden was on the pitch. It was just kind of this really bizarre moment, but I found it so much fun. Again, it was kind of still was playing amateur at club level, and to be playing for your country at such a young age and having just come through the ranks at the youth team, it was just, and obviously Kim Little was there as well, one of my best mates, so she was kind of my kind of go-to to ask questions and relate to from being kids in amongst a bunch of superstars. So yeah, it was good fun.
Big thanks to the Cypriot taxi driver that got your mum there on
big
time.
Thanks,
basically,
yeah.
Wherever he is, can we get him in the Hampden Museum at some point?
Give him a cap.
Did it feel like it picked up quite quickly then, the Euros run after that, sort of 2009? Do you very quickly feel like a kind of regular and a main part of the Scotland setup?
I guess I felt like in a regular, in a sense that I was consistently being called up, and I don't think playing for your country ever becomes normal. I don't think I ever really took any sort of call up for granted. Genuinely, every time I got a call, or even towards the end, I was constantly like, right, hey, I'm on the list, like, all good. No, I don't think it ever got surreal, but it definitely went from the seriousness, I think, gathered momentum very quickly. I think you go from playing amateur and those days not really knowing if you can play professional. It was still, the game was still growing. But I remember the one thing I loved about Scotland, or playing for Scotland, was it gave you that sort of platform to take it seriously, that they were trying to make you train as professional as possible, and kind of that, I think playing for Scotland made me believe that it could become a job one day. So I loved that aspect, because all of a sudden you were playing qualifiers and games that mattered and for something. And that was the part I loved the most, like how competitive it was and how much people wanted to win. So I loved that. I fell in love with that straight away.
And the beauty of international football is some opponents mean more than others, and you famously scored against England. It had been a long time, I think, since Scotland had beaten England. Not only did you play and score, you played as a striker as well. You've got to tell us the backstory as to how that happened.
The backstory, how did that happen? I think, right, because again, I was so young when that happened. I don't really remember the reasons why
You
specifically.
do what you're told and just.
But I think, I might be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure, like, Julie Fleeting was obviously the most prolific scorer. She still is. She's got all the stats that are more goals than caps, like something insane like that. And we're similar stature, 5'10", and I genuinely think at that point, I might be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure that's when she fell pregnant and took a bit of time away from the game to have kids. And I'm pretty sure Anna Signol saw an opportunity that I was similar height.
Same height.
I think so. I would honestly love to sit down with Anna and just actually go through why it happened, but I'm pretty sure that's why. The style that we were playing at that time was with a target player, balls into the box, that kind of hold-up play. And I'll be honest, I absolutely loved it. I thought, this is amazing. All of a sudden, I'd gone from not really having a position to giving an opportunity, because I was still young, so I hadn't really pinned down a position at that point. So the opportunity to score goals and be in the box and be link-up play, and I loved it. And again, playing against England, I think we beat them 2-1 in Cyprus and got a goal, got an assist, and all of a sudden I was playing at striker and just absolutely loving it. And I think club kind of followed suit as well, because Julie was playing striker at Arsenal, and I eventually got the move down there, and we did a similar thing down there as well. So it was very good fun.
How special is that feeling? Because we're about to get on to qualifying for major tournaments, but aside from that, it feels like scoring against England would be a real high point for a Scotland international.
Yeah, I think obviously there's so many highlights I could probably pick out, but the one thing, also if you play club football in England,
that's true.
It's very good bargaining power to be like, we actually did beat you at one point, and to have obviously scored in the game and got an assist as well. And I still speak about it because like mates with Jill Scott, and she was playing that game, and it's a good one to bring up sometimes if you need a bit of bargaining power. But yeah, that was definitely a standout, again, because I was so young and we were kind of kids, and there was loads of rotation happening, and yeah, it was a fun game.
I suppose, well, football at any level, but particularly at the elite level, there's that bittersweet nature of you help Scotland, an historic achievement, getting to the Euros in 2017, but then miss out due to injury. What's that like? What's that range of emotions like, and how tough is it?
Yeah, that was probably, I think, my first real low in football, I'd say, like across the board, club and country. I'd gone through a couple of sort of tournament qualifications at that point, and the seniors were sort of the likes of Joe Love, Gemma Fay, all these kind of people that had been around for so many years, and were desperate to be at a tournament. And that feeling of, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now, but the feeling of having qualified for your first one was just this high that we'd never had as a team, and let alone me. I was 24, I think, 25 maybe. So still, like, coming into the sort of most enjoyable time of my career at club. I just signed for Man City. I was in a couple of years with them. So I was feeling amazing. So to get injured 6 weeks before the tournament started was genuinely devastating. Like, there was such hype around it. I couldn't wait to play or to be a part of it. So to miss out on that was genuinely, like, so gutting. I'll never forget it. It was on a national team camp that I actually did it. So I was on Scotland camp when I got injured. 6 weeks before, it was the last prep camp.
You sort of know, like, as soon as you feel
the
pain, you sort of know.
Yeah, because I think I'd never done my ankle before, so I wasn't really sure. But I'd gone back to my room and I couldn't walk on it. I was in a boot straight away, and it was the worst of the worst. Like, it was a grade 3 sort of 3-month injury, so I was out for. It wasn't the case of, can we do this in 6 weeks? It was pretty black and white. It wasn't, which, to be honest, maybe made it a little bit easier. I think if it had been touch and go, it would have been.
And then you miss out last minute.
Yeah, would have been even more heartbreaking. So it was kind of like, right, this is definitely what's happening. And but I will say, Man City at the time were unbelievable. Like, they looked after me so much that summer. Because I was in every day doing rehab whilst the tournament was on, and I struggled to watch it.
Tough to watch.
Yeah, I struggled to watch it. I struggled to engage in anything. I just wanted to get my head down and crack on with my rehab, and because I was just sad. I was really sad. I wanted the girls to do amazingly well, but I was gutted that I'd missed out. But luckily, we qualified for the World Cup.
I was going to say, because I wonder if part of that sadness maybe is a fear that it doesn't happen again. As you say, it's the first one.
100%.
You don't know that there are other opportunities at that moment. Then the opportunity does come around.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was it like to represent Scotland at a World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just to go back to what the fear of it not happening again, or because I think a lot of you play in England, and the English girls kind of get to tournaments every time, and as a Scot, that was quite rare, or very rare. That was our first major tournament, so the feeling of then qualifying for the World Cup was a huge sense of relief. I think that we'd done it again in such quick succession. But I almost, like, even after the Euros finished and we got into sort of World Cup qualifications, I looked around the dressing room, and you've got the likes of sort of Kim Little, Caroline Muir, Erin Cuthbert, Claire Ramsey, all these top players. I was like, we'll get to a World Cup, like, we can do this. So when we did do it, and then, you can imagine the anxiety levels leading up to that tournament. I was like protection at all costs. I felt like I was doing everything by the book and the rest to kind of make that tournament. But yeah, that feeling of actually getting there and being part of it, and because the World Cup's like, it did feel next level. Like, it's a World Cup. It's like, the Euros would have been amazing, but the World Cup was Scotland's first World Cup. And I remember watching France '98 as a kid. I would have been sort of 6, 7, and I honestly think that's probably when I fell in love with football, watching the likes of Zidane, and we scored a penalty at that tournament. And so to be back in France playing at a World Cup for the women's team was so special. And obviously all my family flew out, and they didn't go to the wrong stadium that time.
Yeah, they made it a bit easier. You could Google map things by then.
Things were advanced by that point.
So where, again, when you look back now, where's the balance between, pride at getting to that stage, enjoyment of it, and then I guess frustration, or whatever the word would be, at not managing the success that you wanted? You look at the 2 narrow defeats in the opening 2 games, England and Japan, and then of course, leading against Argentina comfortably, throwing the lead away. There was a good old bit of VAR drama when we didn't know such a thing.
Yeah.
We were just getting familiar with the concept back then.
PTSD from that game, for sure.
Sorry to take you down that road, but I mean, how do you look back on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout that tournament, I came off social media completely. I wanted to just fully immerse myself in it, be focused, enjoy it, really just take in every moment, because it was a huge time for us. And you're playing, again, it was similar to the Euros actually. Our opening game was England, and it was opening game England in Nice. And I just wanted to do as well as possible. It was, again, against players that you're playing against week in, week out at clubs, so we knew a lot about them. And but of course, like, it was our first World Cup. There was a lot of, I guess, nerves there. Inexperience. That was always a kind of running theme with us when it came to major tournaments, and that was frustrating. I think that definitely showed in the Argentina game. We didn't know how to manage it. I think there's so many moments in that game that I'd want to replay, because managing it kind of in amongst VAR as well, trying to manage emotions in amongst that was so difficult, because it was so new to us as players. It was new to the football in general, even more so to the women's game, and that was probably the most disappointing part, was we ended it so negatively. A lot of players were very, very hurt with the way the game had gone, and we let it slip. But in amongst that, I'd scored a goal at a World Cup, and some of my best mates from school were in the crowd watching, and that was such a high. And that goal is probably my highlight of playing for Scotland. And that sounds bizarre, because it was in the craziest game probably I've ever played for Scotland. But that goal was on the same pitch that my dad had scored a try for Scotland playing rugby. And to have that connection and crossover is so unheard of in sport. So to have that, and I've got a picture at home of my dad scoring a try next to me scoring that goal, and that means so much to me, that we have that little crossover over two careers, over completely different generations and sports, and that's just beyond special. And it was at a World Cup, and that happened, and that's pretty surreal. And I think it's okay, the outcome was incredibly negative, and there's a lot of emotions that go within that, but take the positives, and that was it was still an amazing moment.
I was going to ask if it was the same end, but if it's
it
not,
was.
it was.
Yeah,
there we go,
it was
even
the same
better.
end.
I didn't want to take anything away from the coincidence, but
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah,
That's
different
incredible.
ends. Yeah,
How many years apart are we talking?
Oh, that's a good
A
question.
good few.
Dad would have been the 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So good.
It does lead us on perfectly, because naturally we were bound to discuss it anyway. Such a well-known Scottish sporting family, not only your dad and your brother.
Yeah.
What is that all like? Being part of that, where you're all representing your country. Is it good to be able to kind of share those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's not really that much, like, I don't know if maybe it's like a humility that goes with it. There was no bragging. There was no sort of. It was just an amazing environment to kind of grow up in. Like, it was super sporty, and it was so encouraging, but not to the point where it was pressure, or like there wasn't a pressure to play for Scotland. There wasn't a pressure to get as many caps as possible. It was kind of just this really encouraging that as long as you're happy and enjoying it, that's amazing. But yeah, I used to love looking at Dad's pictures or footage from when he played, and going to watch my brother get his first cap at Murrayfield, and just being Scottish and being in that environment and that crossover of sports. And I obviously didn't get into rugby, but Johnny was a really good footballer as a kid as well. He still claims to be a very good footballer now. That's a different story. So I do think the reason I got into football was because of him, just kicking a ball back and forth in the back garden, and having Dad kind of being that oversee of like encouragement of playing sport, and how competitive we all are as kids and as a family. And then obviously having a mum and sister that were just so supportive, and just that really family environment. It was amazing. It was the best environment to grow up in, because it wasn't pressure. It was just encouragement and support.
There's a lot of talk about how far the women's game's come, and still a distance to go, I'm sure. But what were those early stages like? You mentioned wanting to play football with your brother and his friends. When you then want to do that competitively, or try and play for a team, I mean, I understand it was a boys' club essentially.
Yeah.
You joined at Hamilton.
I know, it's funny looking back on that, and everyone my age will say the same thing, but we played with boys. That was it. There was no. I started playing for my primary school team with my best mate Sophie. So I was lucky I had another girl to kind of have that confidence to go into a boys team and play. She actually went on to play hockey for Scotland, so left sort of football eventually, but I just loved it. I played all sports. I loved a bit of golf, loved tennis, played school hockey, but football for me was the playground sport that it's just hilarious to look back. I'd be in a summer dress playing with the boys and just having the best time. Like, it was just, I just found it so fun, so competitive, going up and back, forth in the playground and putting your jumpers down for goals and in amongst the fence, and just I don't know, I have best mates in football still to this day that have come from starting playing at such an early age. And it was always, I guess the question we always had to ask was, what team do you play for? Like, how, if I want to play this, who am I going? So I played for boys teams, Hamilton Ackies, and I was lucky some of the boys from my school year played for that team, so there was a bit of crossover, again, encouragement and mates to go and play with. But it's mad looking back. I don't know how or why I had the sort of confidence to go and play with boys, but I think I was very lucky that they were really nice. They didn't bully me, they didn't, they weren't nasty. They were just, I was just another kid playing a game I really loved, and thankfully I was good. So
that helps.
Yeah, so that was lucky.
Without making you feel old, it feels like you're the perfect era of footballer to really notice the growth of the women's game. We're talking about your first senior appearance for Queen's Park at the age of 15, talking about you playing for boys clubs, but now the crowds in the WSL, the TV coverage, the international crowds, and you've seen all of that within your senior career. What's that been like to watch?
I think that is probably the reason why I feel just so grateful to still be a part of it. I think to see that growth has been crazy, but again, the thing I sort of always say, that there's nothing bigger that could have happened, I guess, in terms of WSL and domestically speaking in England, was England winning the Euros at Wembley in front of a sold out crowd against Germany to sort of challenge the perception of women's football in England. The growth that's come off the back of that from a domestic perspective has just been amazing, and it's I just feel genuinely so lucky to still be a part of it. I think the Wolfsburg fixture for me, Champions League, is always going to be a standout because they compare the crowds over like a 10-year period. That exact same fixture, so we played Wolfsburg, Champions League semi-final, in front of, we sold it out. That exact same fixture 10 years prior was played at Boreham Wood, our home crowd, in front of 1,400. And I'd played in both. So to kind of compare those two, it is surreal, but it's been amazing. It's been amazing watching grow. I feel like it's been on this trajectory where it's just getting bigger and bigger for so many years now. And it's just been so exciting to watch it grow and to be a part of it, and to see clubs and associations like Scotland get behind it and put more investment, and it becoming more commercialised as well, and just being it, or going from amateur, semi-pro to pro, and like getting those full-time experiences, and not just that, but then going on to the next level and having the big sold-out stadiums and playing at big stadiums around the world. It's been amazing, and I'll be clinging on for as long as I can. I know, it's just something I never want to retire from. It's honestly the best job in the world, and it's so fun to still be a part of it now in front of sold out crowds playing professionally.
Do you think that 15-year-old who played for Queen's Park would ever have dreamt all this was possible? And is it quite inspiring in a way to know that 15-year-olds now maybe look at you and realise it is possible?
Yeah, I don't so I always joke that for me the dream was college in America, because that was Keira Knightley and Bennett like Beckham, and that was what everyone aspired to do. That was, I think Julie Fleeting had maybe gone out and played professionally, and she was kind of the first Scottish player to do it, so that was the next level. But to be a full-time footballer, it didn't exist. And I think now, knowing that change is happening, and there's little kids, boys and girls, coming to games and in a shirt with Beattie number 5 on the back, and you're kind of inspiring them that this can be a job, and to kind of look up to and be a role model is an absolute privilege, and it's something I do not take for granted whatsoever. I understand the importance of it, and I think a lot of women in the game do. They understand the value that has to kind of pass on to the next generation, that if you work hard and kind of it can be a job, and that's such a special thing, and it's amazing.
I think the side that will often have to fall into the background to an extent is the human aspect, the human element, all the trials and tribulations of life away from football, and you'll have felt that more than most, of course. 2020 probably doesn't seem like that long ago when the cancer diagnosis comes along. How do you now reflect on that? Again, similar to what we're saying, when you're in the thick of something and you're dealing with the emotions, maybe you're just kind of battling your way through. Now with a bit of time, how do you look back on it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing that time did the most for me was just, it made me learn how much I appreciate my job and what I do and how much fun I get out of it. I think there's so many serious aspects to professional sport, and it's very intense and it's such a bubble, and then you get a health scare and all of a sudden none of that matters. It's all about friendships and things of a, not more important, because it's all very important, but I think it took the weight off. It kind of made me understand that it's a big world and there's a lot of things happening, and sport is full of ups and downs, and it's about trying to not get too high with the high and not too low with the lows, and trying to stay in that middle ground of just absolutely enjoying it and appreciating for what it is. And that's something that I learned the most out of that point. And I guess that kind of, it made me appreciate sport more than ever. It made me enjoy it more than ever. I think one of my mates once said to me that had kind of gone through a similar thing with family members and other people, was there's life before cancer and then there's life after cancer. And that stuck with me because it genuinely did change my perception of life and sport and what it means to me, and it made me enjoy my job more than ever. And I genuinely do think it's the best job in the world, and I try and have a laugh and joke with people every day in amongst we want to win games, and this is our job and the serious aspect of it.
How important was football to you then? Because you carried on obviously as best as you could. How important was football as an aid to get you through that time?
Oh, it was everything. It was, we're talking in amongst COVID, where you couldn't go for, you couldn't socialise in big groups or be around loads of people and take your mind off it, or I don't know, go do social things. It was very much, I was so lucky that I could go and do my job, because a lot of people couldn't. A lot of people were working from home, whereas sport was one of the first things that got up and running. So thankfully I did a job that I was able to do. But I think we all know how much exercise is good for mental health. And again, I was so lucky that was a huge part of my job, was running around in the fresh air. And that's what made me, the one thing I said to my surgeon was, how quickly can I get back to playing football? Because I wanted to go to work. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be around my mates. I wanted to be around people because it was COVID. I couldn't go anywhere else and do it. So that feeling of being able to do my job was probably what got me through it, to be perfectly honest. It took my mind off it. It made me feel human. It didn't make me feel like a patient. And it was absolutely, even radiotherapy, one of the cancer treatments, one of the side effects is fatigue. But what counteracts that is exercise. So when I said that to my surgeon, he was kind of laughed at me and was kind of like, right, okay, you'll be fine. So I was going to training, then going to radiotherapy and just crashing. That was kind of my day, but it was without a doubt what got me through it. Just being around mates, being able to go about my job and feel normal and feel like I was just putting one foot in front of the other and cracking on with my day.
You say you've come out the other side and it's changed your perception on life and in sport. What's next, or what are you up to now? We were chatting before, and I won't even pretend that I can remember your job title at Arsenal, alongside playing as well. You clearly like to take a lot on, so and you've dabbled in a few different avenues as well, haven't you, to sort of plan for what comes next?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I probably have my parents to thank a lot for this, but they kind of always drilled into me from a young age that whether it's education or work experience, to kind of always have something else to not fall back on, but take your mind off. Because professional sport's hard, whether it's winning or losing or injuries. There's also a lot of spare time. I know that might sound mad, but so I've always wanted to kind of occupy my mind somewhere else whilst playing football. I did work experience at Melbourne. I've worked in a cafe on a random summer off. So I did business at uni. So I kind of always wanted to, and marketing's always kind of where I've been interested in. And I feel very lucky that Arsenal have completely backed that from where my interests lie. So the role that I fell into this year was performance lifestyle mentor. It sounds fancy, but it's not. No, I basically did Academy Ambassador last year, which, in a long story short, just looks after the well-being of players. Because that kind of, they wanted it to advance from academy level to first team and kind of look after loan players or players that are injured, or if anyone needs anything, just to kind of be that link between players and staff. And it's a brand new role. It didn't exist a couple of years ago. It's very much a resource that Arsenal have put in and sort of seen a value in it. And I think I have a genuine care for people anyway, so it hasn't really changed much from just being a personality around the sort of training ground and making sure everyone's all right. But yeah, I think it also comes from your own experiences. Like I've been through the injuries of missing major tournaments or health scares or lifting trophies and how to deal with the highs, or kind of across the board. But I'm pretty sure they're probably teaching me more than I'm educating them on anything, to be honest. Like the kids up and coming these days are flying and they're next level. But it's a role I'm really enjoying, and it's nice to be involved in the club from a different aspect and switch on and off from the playing side, but still love the playing side.
But so many options out there. You're talking about things you do at Arsenal and on the pitch. You've done a lot of broadcasting as well. Is that something that you want to pursue further as the years go on?
Yeah, I think that was, again, another reason for why I wanted to retire from Scotland, was to kind of open up the international windows to do a bit more of just basically figure out what I'm good at, see what I'm absolutely terrible at, see what I enjoy, see what I don't. I never thought I'd be the cliche kid that tries to do what their dad does, but I grew up watching him do things in the media, and now started trying to do a similar thing. I realised how much I enjoy it. So yeah, it's definitely something I want to try and follow, and just see if I enjoy it, basically. And I am so far, and it's something I'm definitely going to try and pursue.
I'm sure. And do you like that passing on experience? Is the phone still there if any of the current Scotland squad need to pick your brains about anything?
Yeah, no, I'm still, like, Rachel Corsy's such a close friend. She always will be, and I still love touching base with her to see how she's getting on, because she's captain and that's such a big role, and she takes so much on board in terms of off the pitch stuff and on the pitch. So yeah, I'm always looking to have those kind of conversations, not just from a role perspective, but just as a friend. And I think that's so important, because we're all just people at the end of the day. We're all trying to get to the same goals and achieve what we want to do. And I think it's about helping each other along that process. I think that's a lot of people try and run their own race, and I think it's more of a relay.